Well, hi there. Thanks for finding The Profitable Photographer with Luci Dumas here on YouTube. If you want more, you can just go to any podcast channel and find the show or go to lucidumascoaching.com, Lucy with an I, to learn more about me and to listen to shows. And thank you for subscribing, sharing with your friends, and I hope you enjoy. Bye for now. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. And that's a quote by Audrey Hepburn. And I'm so thrilled to have our next guest, Lori Nordstrom, to introduce you to, or if you already know who she is, I know you'll be just as thrilled. Before I introduce her, I want to send out a request. So I'm starting something new with my podcast, and I'm going to be coaching people live. So if you are a wedding or portrait photographer right now, I want you to send me an email at lucidumas.com or go to lucidumascoaching.com, Lucy with an I, and send me a message saying you'd like to apply to be a guest on my show, where you can ask me anything about pricing or marketing or anything else that is holding you back from your success. I'm particularly looking for people who feel stuck. And so anyway, that's my big news. Do it today. Okay. So Lori Nordstrom began her photography career photographing her own children in the backyard over 25 years ago. She's known for her sweet, simple, real lifestyle focused on families and children. Soon after getting involved in print competition in 2000, Lori was asked to speak at her own Iowa State Convention and has since gone on to present programs and workshops in all 50 states and around the world. We are so lucky to have her. She's been seen on CreativeLive, PhotoVision, and national and international stages. And she's also a sought-after business coach to help people who are creative entrepreneurs reach their goals. And she has a book. Oh my gosh, she does everything. Maximizing Profits, a practical guide for photographers. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We were
fun to talk to you.
Same here. I don't know if you and I have ever just sat down one-on-one and had a chat. And so it's sort of like like somebody said, here, eat this whole chocolate cake and you won't have any calories. Like, it's a delicious opportunity.
Too fun. Well, and I have to tell you, I'm really excited for this next chapter for you. I love live coaching. I call them my live coaching hot seats. And so it's like, who wants to be in the hot seat? Let's do it. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that.
Well, I can't wait. Thank you. Because I love coaching. I've done it all my life, whether people wanted it or not.
Love it.
And so getting to do it live and share is, I had half a thought. I'm going to start that again. So doing it live and getting to share, I'm hoping will really, really contribute to people's profitability and business success. So I want to tell you, Lori, or actually I want to thank you. As people know who've listened regularly, when I started, it was a man's world, and I'm going to stop mentioning that from now on.
Are you?
Because everyone knows that. But
okay.
You and Sarah Petty and Sandy Pooch and Bambi Cantrell came on the scene like a wave of the woman's voice. I didn't realize it was late 1990s something and early 2000s. That means it was 20 years in my career before the woman's perspective came on the scene. And it was just, I remember the convention. I can see the room in my mind and seeing your beautiful framed black and whites that were these sensitive, natural photographs, and just being gobsmacked that that this additional voice was starting to become national prominence. So, Lori, thank you for being part of that pioneering team.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. It like takes me back to the days where we'd go to speak, we'd have canvases that were rolled up and we'd unroll our canvases and hang them all around the room. And it was just a a different time, super interesting. And of course, before social media and all the things that we have now available to us digitally, we didn't even think of podcasts then, right?
Yeah.
But
No.
yes, different world. And it was a very interesting time. The first few times that I was asked to speak locally, as you mentioned, locally, and then at some other state organizations, and kind of got the bug from there. But in those first moments, I would be one of the only women that were on the platform at a workshop, convention, state convention, whatever. And so, yeah, we've come a long, long way, haven't we?
Yeah. Yes.
Women have taken over.
Yeah. Well, I think guys think we have, but really we're just holding up our half of the sky. And I had my master's 10 years before you even started in business. And so there were women speaking in the local level. But so what do you think you added to the conversation about how to be a successful photographer, you as a representative for that wave of women getting national and international prominence?
Well, it's so interesting because I've always said, when the term MWAC, Moms with a Camera, came out, I was like, I'm the original.
The OG of the MWAC.
Yeah, right. But literally, when I started in the mid '90s, I even worked for another studio for about a year, and all, of course, studio, all very old master style, which is so beautiful, and I learned a lot there. But it was the Tim Waldens and the Tim Kellys and the Darton Drakes of the day, that all had this just beautiful, gorgeous studio, old master style that was fantastic. But that was what was on stages at the time. And all brick and mortar, all, kind of that look and that style. And when I started, I didn't know any better. I was running around the backyard with my kids and just shooting a roll of black and white film once a month or so. And then I fell in love with hand painting. And I just happened to take a class that had come through, and I was painting with oils on my black and whites. And I started hanging those first original, little photos of just my kids, like literally running in the backyard, laughing, playing, holding hands, not looking at the camera, all of that just wasn't cool then. But that was how I saw my kids. And then I was hand painting those. And at the time I owned a hair salon. And so I was hanging up those pictures of the kids in the hair salon, and started having other clients and people that came in saying, oh my goodness, where did you get that? And so of course I started photographing their kids. And that's kind of how my photography business came about, very organically in that way. And there just came a day when I said, I don't want to cut hair anymore. I want to be a photographer. And so legit, I was the first mom with a camera, and I know I wasn't, but at the time we didn't have social media. So I didn't know anyone else who was doing that. And I don't think I really knew, hey, I'm going to make a career out of this. But I knew at the time I had never worked for anybody else. All I ever knew was my own business since I was 16 years old. And so it didn't scare me at all. I guess that was one of the bigger things. And then I was really blessed to go in and do marketing and sales for another very well-run studio in our area in Waco, Texas, where I grew up. And so I had the blessing of kind of that back end of the business while watching someone who was very talented in front of the camera. And so it was just a really amazing introduction into the industry. But I think going back to the question, what did I bring to the table? That was the original question.
You as a representative for all of the women at the turn of
I
the
think
millennium.
it was just, we don't have to all do the same thing. We don't have to do things the same way, I think was kind of my thing. And like I said, I didn't know any better. And so when I was running around chasing kids with a Mamiya RB back in the day, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. No one told me.
Right.
And so I was doing that. And then when my business started really picking up speed and gaining momentum, I actually went digital really early on. I went digital in 2000.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so just all that transition, I think being on the ground floor of that really helped as well. And then I did start entering print competition in 1999, and in 2000, I think I had my master's by like 2001, like 2 years later. It was super fast, but I got, loan albums right away and all the things super fast. And that's what started me in the, on the speaking circuit. And so I was asked to do that, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I legit was chasing kids and, just photographing real life. That's been part of my tagline since day one, is just real life and always what I want to capture.
So in a nutshell, you, by doing what just felt right, you showed a different style. Now, I want to let you know, I was already doing that work before you were a photographer, doing things similar and little close-up body parts and faces and hand coloring and selling it as wall art. One of my mentors that people hear me mention a lot is Ken Whitmire, and Ken would tell the women that took his class that you couldn't sell wall portraits of children alone.
Oh my.
Yeah. And, I've sold, I don't know how many thousands and thousands and thousands, but it just was, and I want to get on to some other things. You're like, oh, okay,
no, it's all
we
good.
know, but it just was exciting to see you teaching how to make really good money on a national level, doing the things that were different, that spoke to a mother's heart. I'm like every kid's Aunt Lucy. And so there was a point where I said, I don't want to do high key, because that was the thing when I started doing studio. I want to do black and whites of emotion, and I want to see those beautiful little parts and faces. And so I think that it didn't take anything away from the beautiful things that the perspective had been before. And in fact, two of the people you mentioned have already been on my show, Tim Kelly and can't remember who.
Tim Walden, my faves.
Yes, already been on my show, and I still adore what they
100%. They are mentors of mine, both of them. I adore them.
Yes, it just added more. It just gave us more crayons in our crayon box of doing what our heart says. Something funny though, Lori, an interesting little moment in my life, because a lot of the greats then stopped having national prominence, and younger photographers that were doing more candid and more, just lifestyle, a little different. A little more lifestyle, became the superstars. And do you know David Peters?
Mm-hmm, sure do.
Yeah. So there was a woman it was standing room only at WPPI in a big room, probably 2,000 people. And the photographer, it was a woman, and she's delightful. At the time, I felt like her actual photography skills had some room to improve. But what she was offering and teaching was fabulous. David Peters walked in the room in the dark and leaned against the wall. And I thought, if people knew who this guy was, they would bow down to him, because what he brought early on was the vision of how to have a high-end luxury business with a very deep emotional connection. So people like our friends Tim Kelly and others, that then it was time for people to start looking back on what our foundation is, which is one of the reasons I love doing my show, so I can make sure that the newer voices and the ones that have been around a while, we all get to share with others. So that was a long way to start getting to the meat of the show. The other funny thing, when you talked about hand coloring on black and whites, I don't know if you've heard people say that they'd rather slit their wrist than do spot coloring. And it was so exciting and revolutionary and beautiful back when it was new. So do what you love.
Do what you love. That's right. I mean, in my position on that, when I went digital, it was a mission of mine to make my digital paintings look like my hand painted oil. I wanted a client that had bought a hand painted oil piece to not see the difference when it was hanging on their wall digitally. And I really I spent a lot of time on that and, quote unquote, perfecting that. But when it comes down to it, in my opinion, I had a lot of bashing back in the day because I did do a lot of it. And people would bash me. I'm like, this is what is making me money, and I make a lot of money. So don't, you can't tell me that, like this is not okay, because I don't care. And it's part of the reason why we can all be in business. We've got other things that we love and other things that we're good at. And, in these days, you don't even have to be a great photographer. If you are a great business person, you can still make a lot of money in photography.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to be a good photographer these days, I believe. But,
I do too.
I never, ever one day claimed to be the best photographer in town. That wasn't me, but I knew how to run a business, and that was what was important to me, was taking care of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you brought a lot of joy to your clients. And so that's awesome. Yes. So on to our talking points. Okay. So let's get on to the talking points. So I know that you believe that business is business, that photography businesses are not like, oh, we have to do things different than any other business. And that mindset is the most important number one thing to pay attention to. So can you tell me about that? First of all, what do you mean by what do you mean by mindset? Because it's become kind of a catchword.
It is kind of a catchword. You're right. But I do believe that our thoughts, our energy, and there's this whole thing around abundant mindset that I'm a firm believer in. And I do believe to live in a circle of abundance. And I call it a circle because it goes round and round. We have to be able to receive, and we have to be able to give. And that's abundant living, is being open to receiving and open to giving. And, the opposite of that is a scarcity mindset where we're closed up. We don't receive. We're not willing to sell. We're not willing to, ask for the sale. Mm-hmm. And when we have that scarcity mindset and we won't receive, when we also cannot give. And that is the only way to become abundant and to become free in anything in our life. And it's not just about money, although that's a block for a lot of photographers, because we're doing what we love, and how can we sell it? We want to just give it all away and want everyone to have what we do. Mm-hmm. I hear it all the time, and I know you do too, Luci, with the people that we coach. But I do believe that abundant mindset is something that we can all we can all strive for, we can all have. And it's not something that stops today because I've arrived. It's something that we continue to step into every single day, that I get to choose today. Mindset is everything. I get to choose today how I'm going to live, if I'm going to step in today with abundance, or if I'm going to step in today with scarcity. And I mean, this was the perfect year, right? to really look and get aware of what's going on in your mind, because we could go and sit on the couch with a blanket and our thumb in our mouth and say, 2020 sucked, and I can't wait till 2021 and get out of this. Or we could be the person that is saying, what are the opportunities right now? How can I pivot my bit? I hate the word pivot now because everybody says, I know. But what can I do right now? How can I be open to that abundant mindset, which means I'm looking for the opportunities all around me. And I'm going to tell you, 2020 has been probably the busiest year of my last 5, I would say. I've been so busy, and I've been so grateful for the work, but it's been a crazy busy year. And I do believe a lot of that had to do with mindset.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you said, 2020 is, maybe that's why sometimes different years feel different, because there's like a collective mindset that this year is like this, but next year is going to be like that. And the mindset, people agree with that. And so that's what happens, because everybody's on track for that.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, when we're sucking in all the energy that we're sucking in online, and there is this doom and gloom, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of even hate, a lot of just turmoil and pain, that's in the world right now. And we can choose to dwell in it, or we can choose to step out of it and look for hope.
Right.
So you're right, though. I think, we can get sucked into that just by what we're surrounding ourselves and what we're allowing into our minds.
Right. And that being said, I notice sometimes, because as artists, I think we're pretty sensitive to kind of global emotions, maybe, even if we're not watching the news and such. And that I have to allow myself, like this weekend, I just had to call my sister and have a big rant about how sad I am, and then acknowledge it and realize, okay, well, there's been lots of things in this last week that have made a lot of people sad.
Right.
And let myself feel that for a time,
yeah,
acknowledge it, and then move on, because we all have, like I've mentioned before, I had brain surgery, and I had times when I felt sad about that. But at the same time, it was one of my most profitable years, because I knew that in between, well, there was actually 2 years involved, but in between the moments when I was dealing with this, and I don't know if you've ever had an illness where it was like your part-time job, going to the doctors and all the things, but in between there, then I was like motivated, book those sessions, do those things, get organized. And I had 2010 and 2014 were some of my biggest years for business. So yeah, I love that the mindset of abundance, and kind of, my daddy used to call it the can-do attitude, or stick-to-itiveness. That was his thing. Is there some way that people can cultivate an abundant mindset?
I do think it's a daily choice, but one of the easiest ways to step into abundance is through giving. And it doesn't always have to be money. It can be time. And I want to make one thing clear, that living in abundance and having a heart of giving and gratefulness has nothing to do with giving your work away. Okay. So they're two different things.
Yes. Preach it.
Yes. We have to make money to have a bigger impact in the world, to be able to give, to be able to show up in big ways. So I'm all about creating value in the world and being paid for that. Mm-hmm. However, if we give, even when we don't feel like it's just there, if we stretch a little bit in our giving and the way that we show up for other people, we automatically are stepping into abundance. So that's always my first thing when somebody's really struggling and they're using money as a block. That's a really normal thing for somebody to say, well, I just don't have the money, or I can't afford to, and we're telling ourselves that. And when we believe what we say to ourselves. And so if you're repeating those things, I don't have the money, I can't afford it, money doesn't go on trees. If we're saying all these things to ourselves, the very first thing that you need to do is go help somebody. Mm-hmm. Give them money, that the $2 that you're going to spend on, a soda or whatever, make some choices around what abundance can look like for you.
Right. I have a little game that I play with myself. When I accidentally drop coins, mm-hmm. I leave them. I never pick them up.
Oh, see, and I'm the exact opposite. Okay. We should talk about this.
So I'm going to challenge you, because this increases your abundance mentality. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you tell me your version and I'll tell you mine.
Okay. And in the same idea is, I don't collect pennies from my clients. So when I have an invoice, I round down.
Right.
Because I don't need that 81 cents. So for me, when I let money, like if money drops, of course, if $10 worth of quarters fell to the ground, I pick it up.
Right.
But what I do is I leave it with a blessing, mm-hmm. to the person that's going to find it, that's going to impact them. Because when I've found a dime or a quarter, I feel like, woohoo, like I might pick up coins that I didn't drop. Or I think there might be a date on this penny that was the date somebody's baby was born, and they think of it as a love note. And one time I was camping with some friends at this great little beach place in California, I took a shower and I dropped, it was maybe a dime in the shower somehow, it was in my pocket, and I left it. And a little later, my best friend came out of the shower and she said, "Oh my gosh, I just got a blessing from the universe. There was a dime, and I took that as a sign that God loves me," or something like that.
Aw,
So I just leave it both to say for myself, I don't really need that, but also this is going to be a little boost in their day. So I leave it as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. And I love that perspective and that mindset. And I'll tell you why I do the opposite. And it's not so much around if I drop something, but if I see as little as a penny on the ground, that's how I do think of it. Is I think of it as a gift, and that I am grateful for that gift, and that it was left for me. Now, if I drop something, if I drop a quarter, I probably am going to go directly to, that's not mine. But I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to pick it up and bless someone with it. So I might turn around and, I drop something in the gas station, and I'm going to just pick it up and turn around and hand it to the person behind me. Makes sense?
Same idea.
Same idea. It's just like a little bit of a different way to think about it. But I was taught, we did not have money growing up. And I was taught that there was gratefulness around every penny. And so I was taught really young that if I saw a penny, to pick it up and to close my hand and say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're on the same page, because I pick up pennies. I didn't leave.
Right.
It's just somebody's got to be leaving pennies and quarters and dimes for someone else. So if it slips out of my hands, I figure that's me and somebody. Yeah. And then the same, honestly, Lori, my business grew when I stopped collecting pennies on invoices.
Isn't that interesting?
Because it was a mindset
mm-hmm.
that I do not need. First of all, it simplifies accounting so much.
Yes.
And it looks more luxury. So it's a positive from the standpoint. Like if I spend, like I bought a car and whatever was down to the penny of, what I owed for the car. And I'm like, that's just so weird to me now.
Mm-hmm. So as long as you can go back through and figure out your taxes accurately.
Yeah. Well, I just, we charge what we charge, and I just subtract I just charge 8%, and I just absorb that little 62 cent. So the other way I think increases people's abundance is investing in things that feel like a stretch. It could be going to a convention. It could be, Texas school or West Coast school, or it could be hiring somebody like you or somebody like me. And that act starts the ball rolling of the abundant living.
Yeah, that is true.
Trusting that money is going to grow ourselves financially. And it's also contributing to others, because when someone hires you, that is supporting you. Yeah. So, it's that
circle. It's that circle of giving and receiving. And that's one of the things that I say all the time is don't ever let money be a block. When, just saying those things, just saying, I don't have the money or I can't afford it. You're putting that energy in the world, and really all money is energy. And so we have to allow ourselves to release it. And it doesn't mean to live frivolously or to waste money. I love the concept of wasting versus investing. So spending versus investing, there's a complete difference, whether it's time, money, or energy. Are you wasting it or are you investing it?
Right.
And you're so right. My word of the year for 2020 was invest, or is invest. I guess I shouldn't say was. But my word for 2020 is invest. And I just wrote a whole page about the concept of investing my time, my relationships, in the team I'm building, in in my future, all the things. And I love that concept of investing.
So is there any other part of mindset that you, is there mindset part 2?
Well, and I think for business owners that abundance is huge. But I would say the other part that's really hard for creatives is compartmentalizing and being productive. We think that if we're busy, we're being productive, and that is not the case. We can be very busy spinning our wheels, doing a lot of nothing.
Yes.
And instead of time blocking and getting things done and being very focused, and it's hard for creatives, but it's one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way, to put systems in my life so that I can stay focused. If there's a system there, if there's some things that I need to be checking off, which is not my personality, I get so much more done. And so I'm big on time blocking and big on focus. And it's just as hard for me as anyone else that's a creative, even though my mind is a little bit more off of the creative path and more on the business path. Mm-hmm. But it's still hard. It's still hard. We have so many distractions.
Yes. And I've learned, and it's taken me a long time to learn, that one system doesn't fit all.
Correct.
So being 100%. Very visual, when I hired a professional organizer, which I highly recommend, nice. Especially someone who helps you organize your workflow. Mm-hmm. She, after we dealt with some of the emotional quotients of, I wasn't a hoarder, but I was pretty stuck. And once we got through a lot of that, she said, Luci, you're a visual, and if you put things in a place that other people think would be a great place for them to go, you're going to forget you have it. Mm-hmm. Your world is never going to look like perfectly neat desk and everything away in drawers and things. That isn't going to work for you. And so we set up a system of shelves and magazine folders. Mm-hmm. So that I can look on that shelf and I see where every client's flow is, and they move to different shelves. And that works for me, and other people that would be too messy. So finding, imagine you would agree with that, finding systems that fit what works for you rather than what somebody else might say, this is the end all be all. If you don't do this, you're a loser.
Yeah, I have the same system, Luci, for my portrait business. I use a bin system, is what I call it. It's just magazine bins, but I've got a workflow envelope that passes through each bin as it goes through the client journey, and that's just how I visually keep track of where everything is and know where I am in the process of each client. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love that.
So does each client have their own bin, or each bin has?
No, each bin is a different part of the workflow. So I create a client envelope that has my entire workflow start to finish, and which is a really good transition here, Luci. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but I'm going to give away a workflow envelope to everybody.
Oh, awesome.
So yes, but my workflow envelope, I have, it's got all the client information up at the top, and then I have my entire workflow printed on the front of it, so that I can go through and very systematically, check things off. I can time things, different processes, especially when I'm training somebody else. Mm-hmm. I have them time what they're doing and then initial off on each task that they've done. So we can go back and say, okay, what's going well? What could go better? Where can we streamline? I can learn from other people. Oh, you're doing this way faster than I ever could. Teach me what you're doing. Mm. So we can go back through this whole thing, and it's got all the notes. It's got a space for notes for each client. So I can literally go to see who's in production in what area and go pull their workflow envelope if they call, or if I need to send them a message, or, whatever's going on, I can pull it right away and I can see exactly where we are in the workflow. So it's been a game changer for my business. I've used it for about 20 years.
I love it. I started, of course, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there were these things called negatives. And you know,
Me too.
and the bins were how I kept, and I was at the time, some people thought I was an overshooter because I would do 10 or 11 rolls of 220, which was
Yep.
24 images with my Hasselblad. And at the lab, they'd say, "Oh, how many weddings was that this weekend?" And I'd be like, "One." And, most people were trying to keep it to 6 rolls or something. So I had big wads of negatives. Nowadays, people do, thousands of images at a wedding because they can.
Yep.
But yeah, I would have loved that envelope system as an addition. So I'm going to sign up for it. While we're talking about that, how do people get a copy of that amazing workflow envelope?
Yeah, you can actually just text workflow to, and we can put the number there for everybody, but it's 515-462-0409, and just text the word workflow to that number. And that's my business text marketing line, and you'll get it right to your phone.
Love it.
And it is a PSD file. So I do have this in the message that comes, but you will have to not open it on your phone. You'll have to take that link and open it on your desktop or your laptop. Because it's a layered file, so you can take it in Photoshop and make it yours, change anything you need to change.
That's great. That's so generous of you. So something I wanted to ask you about, because I've always been a big fan of your portrait party idea.
Yes.
And are you able, have you pivoted in your work, in your portrait party idea? What are your thoughts on portrait parties in this particular life situation we're all in?
Right. Well,
maybe first mention portrait parties, because if someone listens to this in 5 years, they may want to
know what that is. Yeah.
know what it is, and then how you might adapt.
Yeah. Good question. So portrait parties for me came about, I've always done like mini sessions and events and that kind of thing, but I wanted to do something higher end. And it was at a time in my business when I had about $32,000 a month in expenses. And so I had to really be very intentional about my calendar being booked and what that looked like. And I was looking out over a month at one time, and I just, was putting numbers together, and I was like, I'm not going to hit my numbers this month. I got to figure something else. I got to figure something out right now. And so I called a client that I loved, whose kids I loved, and I just kind of made stuff up as I went. But I called her and I said, hey, I'm starting something brand new. How would you feel about a free session for the girls and $500 in portrait credit? And that very first client that I called said, sign me up. She didn't even know what she was signing up for. But she said, sign me up. And so once I kind of had the game plan rolling with her, basically what I told her was, I'm going to ask you to invite 15 friends with kids. Sitting up through age 14 is my age, but I always ask them to get 15 because that would mean I'd end up with 10 to 12 booked. Right. And but I want you to get 15 friends, and you're so well connected. That's a really good line, you guys, if you're listening. And you're asking, because if you tell someone you're so well connected, I knew you were the right person for this, their mind already starts to work. Who am I connected with? Mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So, you're so well connected, and here's what I need you to do. So my portrait parties everyone doesn't come at the same time. They all have an appointment. So they're coming every 30 minutes, and my host mom does book them all. I do contact each person before the portrait party. So I have that connection with them, but we're just photographing kids. I'm photographing for about 15, 20 minutes, and then I'm coming in and handing a card to my salesperson. So we do sales right then. So I'm shooting, someone else is selling, and I'm shooting the next session while that sales appointment is taking place. So it's a very quick, fast-paced momentum kind of day. But with the preparation that I do with people, we've got the sale, kind of wrapped up. They just need to see the images and get them plugged into the products we've already chosen. So I do have really good sales from these events. And my very first one that I ever did, she had 11 people booked, and I had a $10,000 day.
Nice.
And so we came home from that very first one and I was like, I'm doing this every month. Let's go. Let's do this again. And so it became a big product line in my business and something that was very, very successful for lots and lots of years. And I still do a few of them a year. I don't do them every month anymore. But in today's changing climate, one of the great things about doing a portrait event like that, whether you call it a portrait party, portrait event, whatever, some key benefits are that you only have to know one right person. And that one right person is then going to be your quote unquote marketing mom. And you can do this for any genre. I do it for kids because I love photographing families and I want those families back in for a full experience. And so I photograph kids for the portrait parties and then invite them into a full experience with their entire family at a later date. But that one host mom is going to introduce me to, 10 to 15 new people, new clients.
So would you still be doing an in-person party or?
Yeah. So here's the deal is, these events, I normally do them at the client's home. So I am shooting outside, typically just in the backyard. I am photographing just kids being kids. So I'm not super concerned about the background. I am concerned about the light and the kid. That's about it. Mm-hmm. And they're scheduled every 30 minutes, whether they have 3 children, 5 children, or 1. So I am just, turning those sessions pretty quickly, but they're not coming all at the same time. Now, the thing that I would probably do differently today, depending on where you are in the country, I'm in the Midwest and things are a little bit looser here right at the moment, but I would probably host it at like a park location. Mm-hmm. Or a country club location, like somewhere that's not at a client's home necessarily. So she's not taking on that responsibility of having all those people in and out of her house, mm-hmm. But still have her be the host mom, her still get the rewards, but have it at another location. And so, for example, I've done these events at a park where we've got a pavilion that it's an open pavilion, but my salesperson can be there with a laptop and that mom can come sit down with her. The kids can go to a different part of the park. On those days, I hire a teenager to be a babysitter. So once I'm done shooting, the babysitter, she's in another spot in the park. So the kids will get taken there. Mm-hmm. Mom will go sit very close by in this open pavilion and pick her images. And I'm off shooting the next client. So, and someone starting it for the first time may have to spread them out a little bit further than every 30 minutes back to back. But once you get in a groove and you do it, do it a couple times, I've just found that I love that momentum. It just keeps me really high energy all day. Mm-hmm. When I've got, I have about 15 minutes that I'm actually photographing. The other 15 minutes is walking them to a spot, and then walking them to the babysitter, passing off a card. I shoot a separate file card for every single client. Mm-hmm. And then that card, my salesperson pulls the JPEGs off of that card, and then that card with RAW and JPEG goes into their workflow envelope. So they've got all the RAW files there in their envelope that are there, and we only ever pull the ordered images that they ordered that day. So that part saves us a lot of time and workflow as well, because we're not touching any images that weren't ordered. So it's besides the high-paced energy of the day, it's also a very profitable day because I am photographing more volume, still at a higher end. I have found that my sales averages are about half of what they are on a full experience session, but it's higher end, but I don't have any of the workflow in between session and sale, mm-hmm. Which changes everything. That's just a game changer when it comes to workflow. Mm-hmm. So it ends up being a very profitable day.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a lot like what the youngins are calling mini sessions, except that
higher end. Yeah.
But the difference is that you are having a host mm-hmm. that gets the clients for you rather than boosting posts or however we might market an event.
Exactly.
Like that.
And there's no reason not to market an event that way. If you want to put an ad out on social media or however that works for you, it's totally fine. I have just found that, and I don't do sets, so I'm not like recreating a set for each one of these. It's not, I don't even take a background, none of that. It's just kids outside.
Yeah.
So, and that's just been my angle with it. But I've had people that have said, oh, it's supposed to rain on Thursday when we have our event. What are we going to do? I just say, we're going to splash and have fun in the rain.
Oh,
and
cool.
I mean, I have done them in the snow. I've done them like we don't. And I just tell every client, I just stay super positive about it and say, we're going to have fun in the rain, or we're going to have fun in the snow. Make sure they're dressed accordingly. And I'll have people come with the cutest rain boots and raincoats and umbrellas and all the fun things. And obviously, if there's a tornado coming through, we're not going to do it. But I haven't had one yet that I've had to reschedule because of weather. It just always seems to work out. And there was even one whole event that I did almost the entire event on the client's porch because it was raining pretty hard that day. But I'm going to tell you what, the lighting on that porch on that cloudy day and some rain, it was fantastic.
Heaven. Yeah.
So, and I just tell people, you're going to have super unique images. We're going to play in the rain. We're going to play in the snow, whatever.
Yeah. So I had 2 questions on this. Question 1 is, so how much do you then market to the participants for your fuller sessions, maybe family sessions, other things that you do? Do you have, a system to possibly get them in within the next 6 months, let's say, for a full session?
I do. And I'm going to tell you, Luci, one of the biggest places that I think photographers fail is in follow-up. We have to have a system for follow-up. And it's key. So that's such a good question. On these particular events, I'm assuming that full experience right from the beginning with them. So I told you I do a lot of prep with them beforehand, even with these shorter mini quote unquote sessions. So I'm calling them and I'm telling them, now what most people do with their images from this session is we're going to do something really special for your kids' each of your children's room, each of your daughter's room, whatever. So we're going to do something really special for their room. And I'm going to be asking you to take some snapshots for me, telling me all about the colors, the theme of her room. And we're going to plan for that. That's how I'm going to ask you to dress her. That's going to be, I'm going to photograph for that theme and those colors, whatever. And I tell them that, and then I tell them, and then what we'll do when you guys come in for your family session, and I just say it as if.
I love it. So
what we'll do when you come in for your family session is we'll plan something really special for one of the living areas in your home. How does that sound? And they're just like, okay, because nobody's ever talked to them like that before, Yeah. And typically, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Start with typically. That'll be a good edit.
And typically what happens from these sessions, if I, for example, have 12, which is a really nice average for me on those days, I'm going to have 2 of those who won't buy for the wall. That's just kind of like a hard number for me. It just happens. The rest of them are all buying exactly what I'm telling them to buy. And it is the one circumstance where I don't require snapshots of the wall before I do the session. Every other session, it's required. I won't even shoot. So I am shooting for the wall every single time. And I'm shooting very, very specifically. And even on these, I use my same system, my same flow. It's just shorter. And for these, I'm shooting for the kids' rooms. So I'm not asking them to walk through their house and take photos of every wall they consider hanging a portrait on. I'm literally saying, we're going to do something that's so special for your child's room. And I'm asking them their ages and their personalities and what do they like and what are they into. And, if they tell me, Johnny's into dinosaurs right now and he's just obsessed with them, I'm going to say, bring the dinosaurs, right? Because I want that thing that they're so into. That's part of this mini session. I wouldn't do that with a full experience session. No. I'm not going to have them bringing their little toys. Yeah. But for these, when we're creating something really cool to go in their room, it might be an image series, or it might be just one big, almost poster-ish above their bed. I'm getting those snapshots for them, and then I'm telling them what they're going to buy. So I'm saying, here's what I envision for above her bed. Here's what I envision for down this wall beside the closet.
Awesome. So my other question is, how do you then convert them? Do you just call up and say, okay, now it's time for your family portrait? Or do you give them a gift certificate to motivate them to come in? How do you?
Yeah,
How do
I
you bring
actually
that up?
don't give them a gift certificate, but my system is that when I deliver their portraits, I tell them how much fun that I had with them, or if they're picking them up, whichever way it works. But I had so much fun with the kids, and I'm really excited to get to photograph all of you. And usually I haven't met the husband yet, so I'll say, what's a good time of year for you guys? And I'm just asking the questions again as if. And so when she says, oh, we'd probably like to do it in the fall, or, I think we'd want to wait till spring, whatever, I just ask for permission to go ahead and pencil them in my calendar. And at that time, so I'll tell her, okay, April is a good month. Fantastic. Your husband isn't traveling a lot then. And I usually will say something like, make sure he knows how important this is to you and how grateful you're going to be to have your whole family photographed together. And it's also a good time to say, when's the last time have you had a professional family portrait done? And most people, they just haven't. It's a large majority of people that haven't had their whole family in a portrait. And if they have, it's been at least a year. So it's just a great opportunity to say, tell him how important this is. And I'm just prompting her on what to say. But April, great. So what that means is I'm going to be contacting you in March, and we'll go ahead and select your day at that time. Sound good? And so it's just a process, The other part of that system is I really enjoyed working with you, and I know I would enjoy working with your friends. Would you like to host one of these parties yourself? And so it's just always assuming the next step. And I think, like I said, I think that's a place where photographers really drop the ball. We don't assume the next sale like the dentist does, like the oil change guy, like, everyone tells us when we need to be seen again.
Carpet cleaner.
Yes.
Right. I love it. So a question on, so if somebody says, yes, I'd like to have a portrait party, can they use that $500 for a family session, or would it be only for photos from?
Only for photos. I actually photographed the host mom on the same day, the kids, not the mom. And so the portrait credit is for that day. Now, I have made exceptions in the past, and especially if somebody wants to do one right away and they've spent really well with me during their kids' portrait session, I know that I'm going to enjoy her friends as well. And so I've made exceptions for sure. If somebody says, you know what, I'd really like to do it next month. We've got all these dance moms, I'll say, great. Absolutely. I don't have anything written down on that. So I can make exceptions. And if somebody has spent, let's say they spent $1,500 during that mini session event, I know that their family session is going to be one of my regular averages, which is like $3,500. So I'm happy to give them that $500 towards that. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the general concept is it's money to spend on what's created that day. But if there's a situation, of course, it's your business. There's no brochure about it.
Right.
It has, here's what happens. You can make that exception. Yeah, I love it. So, oh my gosh, we could just do another 2 hours, from my opinion, and have so much goodness to share. Did I have anything else? So Lori, how do we get in touch with you, and remind us of how we can get that workflow envelope gift?
Yes. Well, the best way, honestly, to get a hold of me is through that text line. And so I'm telling you how you can get the workflow envelope, but you can just text me there too. If anybody has a question or just wants to reach out, the number is 515-462-0409. And just text the word workflow to get that workflow envelope sent over to you. And then, feel free to message me there. And of course, you can find me on social media, and I'm just Lori Nordstrom everywhere. So, at Instagram, it's just instagram.com/Lori Nordstrom.
Cool.
All that good stuff. Yes.
Good. So if you could leave our listeners with one last thought, either something you haven't said or summary, what would that be?
I would say to leave them with one last thing would be to know that wherever you are, you're not alone. I think as creatives, we do get lonely from time to time, and especially with social media, and we see everybody else doing all the things. And I always tell photographers, the only people who are looking at your Instagram full of images and your blog full of images are other photographers. So we kind of need to get out of that mindset where instead of going to post all the images that you can find, get out in the world. Mm-hmm. And yes, right now, sometimes we can't physically get out, but even during lockdown, I was on the phone, I was on Zooms, connecting other business owners in my community. I had a Zoom call with over 60 women, business owners, and just connecting people. And they remember that. I said a lot during lockdown, if we're not out there, if we're not networking, if we don't stay in front of people, how are people supposed to remember us? So you're not alone. Don't be lonely. Reach out to your community around you, as well as your community of photographers. There are lots of photographers that love lifting others up. And so reach out.
Yeah, I love it. Be sure to stay tuned for my wrap up, and also get in touch with me if you would like to be one of the people selected to be coached live on my podcast. Lori already affirmed that it is something really fun that people absolutely love. So that is my new adventure, and I think it will not only support you, but any question somebody asks, other people have the same question or the same need. So you'll be supporting others by allowing me to put you in that hot seat. So Lori, thank you so, so much. And I'm sad that we can't see each other at a convention coming up soon, but I know there will be a time. And now we've had one-on-one time. So
I love it.
What a treat. All right. Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. I absolutely loved that conversation, and I hope you did as well. She's one of those people that usually at conferences and things, she's got a crowd around her. And so getting to have just one-on-one time with Lori Nordstrom, what a treat. And I hope you, I know that you got a lot out of that. So a little quick summary. So she shared a little about where she came from and how she just started photographing her kids in a way that just felt right for her. And from that, she created a business that had a different perspective, a different style, different way to shoot that, and people that know me know I don't use the word shoot very often, but had a little lighter, fresher way of photographing kids, natural light with them kind of being themselves. And our conversation about how it was mostly man's world. So, if you're like, oh, Luci, quit going on about that. What I want you to know is I absolutely love the male perspective on this industry, on, life itself. And it was such a joy to see a lot of strong, smart women joining the conversation and adding the perspective that is a little bit different often from women and moms. And it created more opportunities for more of us to get in the party. So grateful to her as part of what I'd say was a second wave back in the day. And let's see. And then we went deep into mindset and the concept of abundant living, and that it's important to give and receive. When we have a scarcity mentality, it is really hard for things to come our way. When we hold everything tightly, when we're afraid to spend or we're afraid to give, how are we going to have people giving to us or buying our things or comfortable with our prices? So I loved her sharing about that, and that it's important to wake up every day and choose abundant thoughts rather than there's not enough thoughts. Her word of the year is invest. And I assume that meant invest time, invest talent, invest money, and grow, share, give, do, and that attracts all kinds of good things our way. She talked about, as business owners, we need to compartmentalize our time because as creatives, it's important to get the things done that are important, and it's easy to get sidetracked, and to have systems to keep us focused. She is giving us a workflow. She's giving us a workflow envelope if you text her, and that helps keep a system in place. And then we went into portrait parties, which is something that she taught years and years ago, that are kind of like, Tupperware parties, but it's staggered. So they're not really hanging out, all together all the same time, and how profitable that can be. And then also how she uses those to lead the people that attended portrait parties into becoming family portrait clients. And I loved how she just assumes that. It goes with what I teach a lot to y'all, which is to become the trusted advisor. Not to ask, but to tell. But we can't do that until we establish ourselves in that role, which Lori is very, very good at. So that is all for today. And I look forward to having you contact me via email or from lucidumas.com if you want to be in the hot seat on my show and get some coaching and help other people in the meantime. So bye for now.
You have been listening to The Highly Profitable Photographer with Luci Dumas. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate, subscribe, review, and share. To connect one-on-one and learn more about our coaching programs, just go to lucidumascoaching.com. Until next time, go have fun photographing and selling your work.